So I just tell you a little bit about something to do with the Thai manuscript tradition, which is a bit unusual as far as I can tell in my experience. So this is the... Just do that. So this is the story in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 82, the Raṭṭhapāla Sutta. And so the outline of the story is, this is a fairly famous story. The Buddha is in the northwest in the Kuru country and arrives at the village of Kotika. It's about Raṭṭhapāla wishing to go forth and his parents not wanting to give him permission. So his parents initially refuse, but after his friends intervene, they give him permission and he becomes a Buddhist monk. Not long after this, Raṭṭhapāla becomes an arahant. He returns to his home village to see his parents, and they try to persuade him to come back. And of course, he refuses. He is already an arahant. And the sutta ends with Raṭṭhapāla giving a long verse teaching to King Kauravya. So in a bit more detail then, the Buddha is on tour in the Kuru country. The Brahmins and householders of Kotika come to listen to the Buddha's teaching. So Raṭṭhapāla is one of these householders. He's a young man. After everybody goes, he waits for everyone to leave, and then asks the Buddha in private to give him going forth pabajja. But the Buddha says to him that this can't be done unless you have your parents' permission. So he goes back to his parents, asks for permission, which of course they deny. They say he is their only son, and what would they do without him? Only upon death would they be separated from him. So Raṭṭhapāla gets a bit upset, throws himself down onto the ground and says, either he will die or go forth. It's quite dramatic. So his parents then say, please get up, eat and drink, just make merit. We can't let you go unless we die. But Raṭṭhapāla stays on the ground saying nothing. So Raṭṭhapāla's on the ground doing nothing. His friends therefore make the next part of the narrative. The parents ask his friends to intervene, and they go and say exactly the same thing. But he remains on the ground saying nothing. Then there is a section, well, how to persuade Raṭṭhapāla's parents to give him permission. The friends go back to the parents and they say, well, listen, he's going to die. So you really have only one choice. If you at least let him go forth, he will come back. And if he comes back, you'll see him again. On the other hand, maybe he won't like being a Buddhist renouncer, and therefore, if he doesn't like it, what else will he do? He'll have to come back. So the friends persuade the parents. And then the parents go to him and say, yes, okay, you can go forth. He goes forth, ordains under the Buddha, directly from the Buddha, and then within a couple of weeks, the Buddha leaves to go back to Savatthi. And the narrative isn't very clear here, but it seems that Raṭṭhapāla goes with him. In Savatthi, it looks like, Raṭṭhapāla goes into retreat and becomes an arahant. Now, I forgot to mention that the one condition his parents place upon him is that once he has gone forth, he should at least come back to the village and so they can meet him again. He shouldn't just completely disappear. So once Raṭṭhapāla has become an arahant, he goes to the Buddha and says, please let me go back to see my parents. The Buddha surveys him and sees that he must be an arahant and therefore it's safe for him to go back. So Raṭṭhapāla goes on tour, eventually arrives back in the Kuru country, and stays in the deer park of King Kauravya. He then goes off to his village, Kotika, to get alms. And when he's in the distance, his father is at the front of the house, in the outer gateway getting his hair combed. And he sees a mendicant in the distance. He sees a renouncer and says, "This is the type of people who took my son away." And so he gives him abuse. He doesn't realize that it is his son. So Raṭṭhapāla then goes to the back door or something and asks a slave girl for some of the food which is being thrown out. And as the girl is giving some of yesterday's rice gruel, she recognizes his hands, his feet, his voice. So the slave girl tells the mother, Raṭṭhapāla is back. Raṭṭhapāla's mother tells his father. His father goes out, finds where he is, and invites him next day to come back for a meal. Then the dramatic part of the story. Overnight, the father has all the wealth of the family piled up, a big pile of gold made, and his former wives, Raṭṭhapāla's former wives, have been dressed up, all to prepare him and persuade him to come back the next day. So Raṭṭhapāla goes back the next day. As he goes back, he's greeted by this, a huge big pile of gold, and then his former wives come out. And again, his parents ask him, please come back to the household life and look at all this. You can live a nice life and make merit. And Raṭṭhapāla says that it would be better for his father to throw all the wealth in the Ganges. Then a fairly humorous interlude, his former wives come up to him and say, "What are the divine nymphs like for which sake you live the holy life?" And he says, Raṭṭhapāla replies to them, "Sisters, I'm not living the holy life for the sake of divine nymphs." And upon calling his former wives sisters, they all faint on the spot. So anyway, Raṭṭhapāla gets his meal, gives a sermon, and leaves. So that is all of the dramatic part of the sutta. Is only about half of the sutta. The rest of the sutta is a very interesting verse teaching that occurs in the encounter between King Kauravya and Raṭṭhapāla. But that's not what I want to talk about. So I want to talk about the first half of the sutta, the narrative of Raṭṭhapāla's renunciation and going forth eventually. So there is a direct parallel to this story in the Vinaya. The opening story of the Vinaya is the story of Sudina, and it's almost exactly parallel to the narrative of Raṭṭhapāla. So just like Raṭṭhapāla, Sudina struggles to get parental permission to renounce the world, and this forces his friends to intervene. It's exactly the same account, essentially. The narrative changes a little bit when the narrative of Sudina coming back to his parents' village, which is Vesali. So Sudina goes back to Vesali, not being an arahant, but because it's a famine, he hasn't got any food, and he thinks, at least if I'm near my home village, I'll be able to get people to support me. Of course, once he is back, his parents start trying to persuade him to return home. Exactly the same narrative. They prepare a big pile of gold, get his former wife to come out and try to persuade him. So Sudina is just like Raṭṭhapāla. He refuses to come back. But then his mother asks one thing. She says, "Well, we have no heir without you. You are our only son. And we have all this wealth, but we have no heir now. So just do this one thing for us. Give us a child." So he says, "Okay, I can do that." So Sudina has a private meeting with his former wife. She gets pregnant and everybody's happy, except he hasn't broken the vow of chastity because there is no Vinaya rule yet. So this is the story that sets the context for the Buddha giving the first rule of the Vinaya against sexual misconduct. So what has happened here is, in terms of the history of the textual history, the story of Sudina has been basically lifted from the Majjhima Nikaya and adapted to the purpose of the Vinaya. So Majjhima Nikaya 82 is the source of the Vinaya story. I think in Eric Frauauner's book, the earliest Vinaya and I think the earliest Vinaya, he talks about how the Vinaya takes narratives from the suttas and adapts it to its own purpose. So this is exactly what's happened here. We have a sutta story adapted to fit the Vinaya. And therefore, the two stories, the two accounts are directly parallel. If you place them in columns next to each other, they're basically word for word the same. So this is really interesting because we can compare the different redactions. We have the sutta text and the Vinaya text, and there are subtle differences. Now, the Vinaya text, if you look at the manuscripts across the Pali tradition, the Burmese, the Thai, the Sinhalese, there is virtually no major disagreement. You have a few spelling differences, but the text is extremely stable in the Vinaya. Very stable. But it's not like that in the Majjhima Nikaya. The manuscripts vary a lot. So when you compare the manuscripts of the Majjhima Sutta, you have all these different sections in. The Thai section, Thai tradition adds here. The Burmese section deletes something here. The Sinhalese section has its own additions. I don't think I've seen anything quite like this in my study of any of the Pali canon. So this is a bit unusual, this text and its parallel in the Vinaya. So basically it's like this. What you have simply is you have the Majjhima story about Raṭṭhapāla. This is the basis for the story of Sudina. But once you have that story of Sudina in the Vinaya, that story then is used because it's slightly different. They've made changes to it. And those changes then sort of feed back into the Majjhima Sutta. So just to give you some basic example of how this works. So in the Sutta account, in the Burmese, Sinhalese, and the PTS editions, you have this sentence, Raṭṭhapāla's parents say to him, "You do not, Raṭṭhapāla dear, know of any suffering. Kasachi dukkasa janasi." And in the Vinaya, this is slightly unusual Pali syntax. The verb janati does not usually take the genitive. So in the Vinaya, the direct object of janati has been changed to an accusative, kinchi. And that makes something a little bit more grammatically better. So you can see the process of redaction here. The Vinaya storytellers have redacted their source text in the Majjhima. So you get the sentence, same sentence, you do not know anything of suffering. So we see this throughout the Majjhima Sutta and then the Vinaya text is subtle changes between the two. And all of these subtle changes make the Vinaya text that little bit more grammatically better. They make the narrative, they add things to the narrative that explains it a bit more. So there's no doubt the Vinaya is redacting the Sutta text. However, just in this particular sentence, the Thai edition, the Shyama Ratasa edition, follows the Vinaya. So this text here, Natwam Tata Sudina Kinchi Dukkasa Janasi, that is what you have in the Thai edition of the text. So the Thai edition has looked at the Vinaya and brought that change back into the Sutta. So when I say the Shyama Ratasa edition, I mean of the Majjhima Sutta. So we have exactly this process. The Majjhima is the source for the Vinaya, and the Vinaya's own changes come back into the Sutta. So I just want to give a few examples to show how this works. So with regard to the intervention of the friends, Raṭṭhapāla's friends go to Raṭṭhapāla and say, "Come on, Raṭṭhapāla, get up, come back. You can't do this." In the Majjhima Sutta, the friends just appear in the narrative without any introduction. So the text just has, "Then the friends of Raṭṭhapāla approached him. Having approached, they said this to him." So this is very typical of Pali Sutta style. You just have, you know, formulaic sections of text. You don't have any explanation of why the friends decide to do this. It just, this is how it is. So in the Thai Pali tradition, they have added a little bit extra here to explain what is going on. So this can be found in a Khwan manuscript at the National Library in Bangkok, which has this addition. So this, by the way, this Khwan manuscript is from the Thonburi period. It's a fairly early, broadly speaking, Bangkok manuscript, probably copied directly from an exemplar in Ayutthaya, I suppose. So this is the addition in this Khwan manuscript. Then his parents, having spoken 3 times and getting no response, had his friends summoned and said to them, "This one, your friend, wishes to go forth. Stop him." So there is the text, and if you look just at the bottom here, it's coming exactly from the commentary. So not even from the Vinaya, but this part of the text has slipped back into the sutta from the commentary on the sutta. I mean, I've looked at Pali manuscripts in the different traditions, Sinhalese, Thai, Burmese. What usually happens is that when a commentary is quoted on a manuscript, they write it in between the lines. So you have, say, on the Khwan manuscript, you have 5 lines. And if you want to add something, you put it between the lines. But this is not what has happened here. I mean, this is directly part of the text. So I think something must have happened that originally maybe it was a note, you know, in between the lines, and then that gradually over time gets put to be part of the text. But this is unusual, to have like a lengthy sort of few sentences directly from the commentary going back into the sutta. So that is the section exactly the same, essentially. Okay, now just this same episode, which is occurring at the end of this section dealing with the friends. So when the friends have tried to persuade Raṭṭhapāla to come back, and Raṭṭhapāla won't come back, he's just lying on the ground, we have this another long addition in the text where the Khwan manuscript reads as follows. Then this occurred to the friends. If this person not obtaining ordination were to die, what merit would there be? But if he is ordained, his parents will see him from time to time, and we will see him. We too will see him. However, this thing called ordination is burdensome. Day after day, one must take a clay bowl and wander for alms. When encountering warmth, one seeks the cold. When encountering the cold, one seeks the warmth. One must live the holy life with one bed and one meal. But this person, Raṭṭhapāla, is delicate, has been raised in comfort, and is a man of the city. He will not be able to live like that, but will return here. Well then, we'll make his parents give their consent. So essentially, this narrative edition is saying, okay, Raṭṭhapāla is this delicate, you know, city dweller. There's no way he will be able to handle being a Buddhist renouncer. Let's just have his parents allow him to try this out. He's bound to come back. So this is the reasoning that is not found directly in the text, but you have in the Khwan manuscript. So again, this is coming from the commentary. This entire section of text in the Khwan manuscript of the Raṭṭhapāla Sutta has been lifted from the commentary. And if you just see these highlighted sections here, is the only difference between what's in the manuscript and the editions of the commentary. As for, I mean, this difference between the Khwan manuscript and the edition of the commentary, I would say it's almost certain that this form of what we read in the Khwan manuscript is almost certainly what you will find if you look at a Khwan manuscript of the Majjhima commentary here. The commentarial text is less stable, let's say, than the suttas. When you compare the different editions of the commentaries, there's a lot more variation than you get in the suttas. So anyway, we have in the sutta text something coming back from the commentary. So what about the Pali Text Society edition? Well, this is it. I just have this section here. You see in the Pali Text Society version of the sutta, this is the Raṭṭhapāla Sutta, what the edition does is it gives long sections in square brackets. Now it's doing that because there are these long sections between Sutta and Vinaya which are exactly parallel. But when you have something in the Sutta which is not in the Vinaya, the PTS editor puts it in square brackets. So this is the section on the conclusion of the Friends' persuasion. So, and this is the highlighted section is something which is in the Sutta of the Sinhalese manuscripts, but which is not found in the parallel section in the Vinaya. So this is a bit unusual. We have a lot of variation here. Okay, so this is the Friends telling, okay, and it's wrong. This is clearly wrong. The Sinhalese text has added this wrongly because the Friends are going back and telling Raṭṭhapāla, you have permission. You can go forth as a renouncer. But if you see what it says in the fourth line of the highlighted section, Tehi bunja cha pivacha paricharehi cha bunjanto pivanto paricharinto kame paribunjanto punyani karonto abhirammasu. May you enjoy delights making merit. So this is exactly the text which the parents tried to say to him, please come back to the world. It doesn't fit where the Friends are saying to him, you can go forth. Because as going forth as a renouncer, this would not make sense. So something has gone wrong in the Sinhalese edition here. The PTS editor was correct to put this in square brackets, and it's something which isn't in the Vinaya. Okay, almost out of time. Okay, but this is how this looks in the Thai edition and the Burmese edition. So where these highlighted sections are is where you have the PTS added text. So you see in SE, the Syama-Ratasa edition, they don't have this at all. And it makes the best sense. So his friends say to Raṭṭhapāla, Anunyatosi mata pituhi. You have been given permission by your parents. Nothing about, enjoy yourself, get up. The Burmese edition has Utehi sama sudina, good sudina, get up. Okay, so that makes sense, but that is coming directly from the Vinaya. Okay, so just in conclusion then, this text of the Raṭṭhapāla Sutta and its parallels in the Vinaya, I think maybe is maybe the most complex example of intertextuality within the Pali canon. There's more editions, I don't have time for that. So basically I said something like this. You have the Majjhima Sutta, which is the basis for the Vinaya account. No doubt about that. The Vinaya account comes back into the different manuscript traditions in different ways. But actually it's a bit more complicated. So you have the Majjhima story is the basis of the Vinaya account. Now then the Majjhima story is the basis of the Majjhima commentary. Now it looks to me like the Vinaya commentary is also elaborating the Majjhima commentary. So we get a direct relationship between the Majjhima commentary and the Vinaya commentary. And I always had assumed the Vinaya commentary was first, but I think actually the Majjhima is first. But then what we have, something strange happening, is the Vinaya commentary then influences the Majjhima commentary. And the Majjhima commentary influences the manuscript tradition of the text itself. It's quite strange. Nothing quite like this elsewhere in the Pali canon. And to be honest, I've still not fully worked this out, exactly how this is working. What was the original text read by Buddhaghosa or the commentators? It's extremely confused. Lots of different pieces of the puzzle. Okay, thank you very much.